Hey, what's up, Village fams? Welcome to another episode of the Village HI podcast, a community for inspiration, elevation, and empowerment. I'm your host, Rocky Savaina. Today's guest is someone whose story is raw, powerful, and full of redemption. Tricia Liupaono, a member of My Sister's Keeper, walked through the darkness of addiction, incarceration, and struggle, but came out the other side transformed with her encounter of God. Now she's laced up on the streets, serving communities that she once struggled in, feeding the homeless, helping youth get IDs so they can get licenses, get jobs, and just really showing up with a heart, a hustle, and a purpose with an audience that, doesn't know or with minimum amount of help. This episode is about freedom, faith, and what it means to give back even though you're still healing. So let's get right into it. Everybody, meet Tricia Liupaono, My Sister's Keeper.
Yes. Hi.
Trish, hey, man, so I came across you, off of, your work, off of Instagram. I love what you do. You are truly just serving the communities, and that's really what caught my eye. And I was like, man, I got to link up, and I got to have this conversation with you. So, just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of like just, who you are, your upbringing a little bit.
So, my name is Tricia Liupaono, and I was born in the mainland, North Dakota, and my dad retired here in Oahu when I was young, like in the teens, and I grew up in Waipahu, graduated, and just went down the wrong path, just made some really bad decisions in my younger years, and went to prison, sold drugs, did about everything. And God got a hold of my life. He snatched me up, and when I finally really just surrendered, things just changed.
Yeah. So, a lot of the people in the community know you as My Sister's Keeper, right?
Yeah.
Or the branding, right? So what does that mean, or how did that even come about?
So My Sister's Keeper came about, I saw a group of men that was serving at Camp Agape.
Yeah, shout out Camp Agape.
It's a camp for kids of incarcerated parents. And I saw these guys pretty much moving as a unit. I mean, you could totally see the Holy Spirit on them. They were men coming out of prison, just together. And, I could relate to it so much because, that was my background. And so as I saw these guys moving as one force, like they were really the pillar of that camp. They were the hands and the feet at that camp. And so I just kind of was watching them, and, I just kind of thought, wow, it'd be great if I came back the following year with women that I was in prison with as My Sister's Keeper.
Yeah.
And the following year we came back as, there was a group of us ladies that I was in prison with. We came back as My Sister's Keeper, and then it just took off from there.
Nice. What drives you to serve your community so selflessly? Because you really kind of just fund your own, like a lot of the things that you're doing, right?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I did everything, was pretty much just out of my own pocket because I started to just see kids and just the need, and, like for me to go and like find the money or fundraise for the money, it just wasn't, it's just not something that is right at that time because you need it right there, at that moment.
Yeah.
And so especially for these kids who needed like identification and stuff like that, I just was like, you know what, I'm just going to pay for it. And as I started to do that, I knew that God will, the more you give, the more you will receive.
Yeah, receive it, for sure.
And so the more I poured out, the more that God would continue to provide and pour in. And so it got wind, like people started to know, people do know. And I have a lot of people that do support me and that have encouraged me, that saw the gifting and saw the things that I was doing. And they do, come alongside me and help me out.
Kind of backtracking a little bit, we talked about in the beginning, in the intro part of, addiction being something that you struggled with. When did addiction, I guess, kind of first, I guess when you, maybe your first struggles with it, and how did that even come about?
Oh, it was when I was really young. I was in a group home. I was in a girls' group home when I was living on Guam. I stayed in a group home for a while. I got into some really bad trouble. I went to a youth facility out there, youth jail.
They sent you to Guam?
No, I was living in. My dad was stationed out in Guam.
Oh, so you're traveling a lot as a youth.
And in Guam, I just was in a group home. I was just like I was labeled as just beyond control as a child, and just a real pain to my parents, and just I was in these facilities and stuff, and I just was like, as I grew up, like now I can look back and see, like, like how it says that God takes what the devil meant for bad,
Yeah.
and he turns it for good. Like now I can see, like, all that stuff that I did in my past, like God literally is applying it for me to be able to do what I'm doing now, like everything.
When you talk about addiction, right? A lot of people hear the term addiction, and maybe some people that are watching really don't know, like, I guess the power that addiction can have on you. Would you mind sharing, like, what kind of things you struggled with your addiction?
So I would say that it started, when I was really, really young. And just because, I guess you just try to numb the pain of things. You just want to it takes you out of your reality, I guess.
Yeah.
And so when I was young, that's what I started to do, just get into alcohol, get into drugs. And as I got older, it just, the drugs got worse. It started from like marijuana and alcohol. And then as I went into my young adult, crack cocaine, ice, and all that stuff I started to use.
Wow.
And I really just, it starts from childhood trauma, something that happened in your childhood that you're just trying to just stuff in, and just, you just don't want to face it as a reality. And unless you heal that childhood trauma, you're always going to battle it. You're always going to try and do something to, like, cover it up.
Yeah.
And so once I started to get that healing and get that really just deliver myself and cleanse myself through the program that I was in, that's when I started to realize, like, okay, I don't need drugs, I don't need alcohol to to do that. It was really like it was like the Lord replaced it with him instead of alcohol.
For people that are watching, that, because I guess the substance abuse and all that is really hard to, like, really break away from. Yeah. Like, what is, like, that controlling power that it has over somebody? You know what I mean? Where people from the outside who don't experience with drugs are just like, hey, just stop, like, just get away from it.
Yeah.
But, like, for somebody who's struggling, what kind of advice you can give to them to be like, hey, this is maybe something that can help?
So I know some people may not agree with this because whether you're a believer, or not a believer, honestly, it is a spiritual warfare. It is a spiritual battle. And you have to, like, I honestly can say that it was that support group and the power of prayer of the women and the men that were praying for me. My Bible study group of women, they were praying for me. I mean, they were interceding on my behalf. They were standing in the gap for my salvation. And if you don't have that, then you're literally trying to fight this war on your own. And if nobody is praying for you and interceding for you, it is like almost impossible, because we're not fighting a battle that is flesh and blood. It is a spiritual warfare. And I know that some people may not understand that, those who are not a believer, but if you are in addiction, if you ever were in addiction, you definitely know what I'm talking about.
Is there, any programs or, suggestions that you can offer to people who just need that prayer or need that, like, who maybe doesn't even have a relationship with God, but like, is there any resources that you can just, just extend to them?
So, I mean, I know, like, when I wasn't a believer at first, and I know when even when I was going to church, like, we can't force our religion or Jesus Christ on anybody. What I found out as I started to go out and as the Lord had called me to go, like, I asked him, Lord, what do you want me to do as I go out? And basically he just said to love them like how I've loved you. And I was like, that totally made sense to me, because he did not force me to come to him. He did not beg me. He did not try to shove him down my throat. Like, he just loved me where I was at. He loved me for who I was, even in my drug addiction, even in my just mess. He just loved me through it. And it was because of that love is when I finally realized, like, I wanted to love him back. I didn't want to do nothing that was going to hurt my relationship with Christ, because he literally was there with me through it all. So my advice to those, or like anything that if somebody's going through an addiction, just love them through it. You know, don't try to force it. Don't try to, no condemnation, no judgment.
Because that can push somebody away, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
totally.
Like trying to, like, hey, you should,
Yeah, and like I just think about when I was in my addiction, like, did that help for me?
Yeah, no. Push you away, probably.
Yeah, I didn't even want to hear it, and so as we go, I really try to just love people where they are, exactly where they are. I don't try to, force them to do it. I definitely don't want to condemn or put judgment on them. I just basically try to love them right where they are.
So, talk about encounter, right? So, like, I always had, I always knew who God was growing up, right? But my encounter, I feel, where my relationship started with God was through my divorce.
Yeah.
And I tell people my divorce is because, I had a great career, beautiful family, beautiful wife, healthy, beautiful kids, all of that. Like, I pretty much had a really good life from, everybody looking in.
Yeah.
But when I went through my divorce, I lost it all. And I felt like that was my encounter. And I still remember one of my old coaches from University of Hawaii, Coach Lumpkin, always told me, he's like, God just needed a way. He didn't orchestrate it, but there's a way to get your attention.
Yes.
And right now he has your attention. What would you say would be your encounter where it was like, wow, like, you always knew about God, you always heard his name, but for you on a personal level, what was your encounter?
So I was very stubborn, still kind of stubborn too, but I would have to say it was the same thing, like God had to really, he literally just stripped me down to practically nothing, and it came through my marriage, like my marriage wasn't it's not perfect, like we were in drugs, we were caught up in drugs,
both of you guys,
a lot of abuse, a lot of abuse. We went to prison, and just a lot of heartache and hurt. There was a lot of infidelity that was going on, and which that really just broke my heart, and
did you guys have kids at this time already too?
Yeah, we have 3 kids, and it was through that pain and all that just heartache and hurt, like I literally didn't know what to do. And if you went through that kind of heartbreak, like I don't wish that upon nobody, because that kind of heartbreak is so painful, and you get to that place like where you don't have nowhere else to do but cry out to the Lord,
Amen.
And I thought of so many things of like suicide. I went deeper into my addiction because I just wanted to numb that pain. And I pretty much like literally lost it all. I lost my kids, lost my house, and it was a repetitive cycle. Like I didn't just do it once. I did it like 4 times. And
when you say you did it like 4 times, meaning like you got clean again and then fell back.
I got clean, and I was like on fire serving the Lord, and like 3-4 different times, and every single time the enemy uses that against you. He comes at you and be like, here you go again, getting clean. You're only going to go back to using drugs. That's what the devil does. It's like he likes to take your past and just shove it down your throat and use that as arsenal.
A reminder, you know what I mean? Like, you're not this good person. No,
exactly,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly. And it got to the point where, like this last time when I relapsed, I started to believe it. I started to believe like, man, this is my life. I'm never going to get clean and sober.
Can't break the chains,
I'm going to die, a drug addict. I'm going to end up, overdosing or whatever. That's going to be my life.
Yeah.
And I was about to settle for that. Like, I was literally going to settle for just being a drug addict. And I don't know, like, by the grace of God, he just was like, no, you are not a drug addict. You are my daughter, and, I have a purpose and plan for you.
So when you were, like you said, right, you got good, you relapsed, or, if that's the term, right, you fell back in this repetitive cycle. Were you in and out of prison during that time too?
So I know, well, yeah, kind of. I went to prison. So remember I told you I was in prison when I was a child.
So at what age did you, your first,
when I went to juvenile hall, I was like 14.
Wow, so you kind of like were in the system for a while.
Yeah, I was 14. Even though it wasn't here, it was in Guam. Like I was in the system, and I was in a girls' home out there in Guam, and I ended up going to prison as a child because I was involved in this, very publicized case with 3 other guys, and it just went in Guam, because Guam is a small island. It just went, it blew up, and because of the severity of the crime, it was a high profile case, and but even at that time, even though like all of that happened, like I still like I had that like I didn't care, like my heart was like, it didn't have no kind of
emotions,
no emotion. Yeah. And I even remember my dad coming to me when I was going through all that, and he like, this is a grown man crying, and he was sitting there crying, and like I just it did, like there was nothing, and I just looked at him and I just was like, like no kind of emotion. And I think back to that and I'm like, like how could, I have been so hard and just so just just no
Emotional,
heart.
heartless. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know that.
And and that's how it was as I grew up, just um heartless, I guess you could say.
How many times were you in and out of like the system? You know,
So
prison or youth, juvenile, or whatever.
so that time I was maybe about 3 or 4 times I went into that group home.
Hmm.
And then juvenile hall I went back like maybe twice, but then we left. My family had to move. My family came here to Hawaii,
Hmm.
and me and my dad had to stay back in Guam for this high profile case.
Hmm.
They wouldn't let me leave until this case went to court.
Yeah.
And we stayed out there for a while. My dad, they had to sacrifice. My family moved here with my mom and my sisters, and my brother moved here while me and my dad had stayed back.
Hmm.
And now that I'm a parent and I have kids, I'm like, man, the stress that I had caused and what they had to go through just because of all the stuff that I was doing. And me and my dad had to live in the barracks and just the money and all of that. And still, it wasn't anything that was like, that I carried.
Yeah, yeah.
And
You're in a
so-
total different mind frame.
Yeah,
back then,
no,
you know what I
like
mean?
it just didn't. It didn't sit anything on me like this is wrong. You
Yeah.
know, I just was like, hey, this is what we got to do. And so finally, the case, was done, and then we were able to move here.
Mm.
And then when we got here, it just got worse. It just
Really?
got worse. Yeah.
What made it worse when you got here?
I guess the crowd,
Hmm.
the environment, the people, yeah, I guess it was just that. Yeah.
Did you have connections when you came here because you were from you grew up in Dakota, right?
Yeah.
And then you went to Guam. So when you came to Hawaii, did you already have like family or connections already, or it was just like you got kind of brought into a group where you just felt familiar with?
Yeah, no. So we do have family here, but we didn't like. I went to Waipahu. Well, actually, I went to Pearl City, and then we got kicked out of there. Me and my sister got kicked out of Pearl City.
High school.
Yeah, for fighting, and we went to Waipahu, and yeah, we just got into trouble there too, and plus because we're coming from the mainland, we're coming out here, we just didn't talk the same. We didn't talk like the other girls. We didn't dress like the other girls. We didn't look like the
You're an
other girls.
outsider, yeah.
Yeah, and like that was a big thing, like just like the girls that we were around, like they just looked at us as, I guess, a threat. We were intimidating because like we didn't look like them, we didn't dress like them, we didn't act like them, but we were them. We were Samoan too,
Yeah, yeah.
And it was kind of intimidating to them, I guess, because we were always getting into fights. They were always wanting to fight us. And I just remember this one last fight we got into, me and my sister, so we ended up getting into a fight at Pearl City, which caused us to get kicked out of Pearl City, and we ended up in Waipahu now. And my sister, my sister is just like she's a gangster, okay?
Yeah.
My younger sister. And she just was like, no, we're going to fight these girls. And I was like, no, let's just walk to the bus stop. Let's just go to the bus stop. We're just going to jump on the bus.
Let's go home.
Mind our own business.
Yeah.
Because, like, the whole school was out there.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like,
And that's
I'm
how
like...
that's how it be sometimes.
Yeah.
So you feel pressure, like, oh, I gotta fight
and I
now.
was like, no, we'll just go to the bus. And literally, we were the only two left coming out of the school, and the whole school was out there. And I said, no, we'll just go to the bus stop. Don't say nothing. We'll just walk. And my sister, like, we were walking in the middle of the street. My sister just yells out, "What's up, cuz?" And she was like, and I was like, oh my gosh, here we go. And sure enough, we started getting into it. And these girls started to like mom my sister. I was fighting with this other girl. But if my sister didn't do that, then we probably would have still been fighting for the rest of our life. Because my sister ended up doing that. We ended up standing our ground. We ended up, stomping on them. And it was like, that's when we earned our respect.
Yeah.
Because we ended up getting suspended for, I think it was like 4 days. And when we went back to school, it was a totally different vibe. Like everybody was like, "Hey Tricia, hey Joanne," like totally different, like totally respecting us. And we were like, "What? Hey, you can come chill with us. You can sit with us at lunch. You want to do this?" And I was like, she was like, and my sister just looked at me and she was like, "See, if you would have punked out, went on the bus, then, we would still been eating back there." And I was like, no, for real though, because I mean, if we didn't stand up for ourselves, we would have still been fighting, But my sister's a G.
Yeah, but it's good though. Sometimes it really is true though. You gotta stand up for yourself
Yeah.
to gain the respect,
Yeah.
right? Because bullying is something huge nowadays,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And I would say that a lot of people bully people that they know they can bully. The ones that
Yeah.
won't stand back up, right? The one that won't, hey, I'll duke
Yeah.
it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes it has to take that course. So, abuse with, the drugs, the fighting, getting kicked out of school and prison and all of that. What was like the last straw that was like, okay, I'm completely done with all of this? And what change was made where you never went back?
Okay, so I recently just got clean. I'm only like 2 years. Not only. Let me take that back. Okay, I have 2 years and like 6 months clean now, and that's the longest I've ever been clean and sober. And the reason why, like this last time, like I was literally losing everything again. I was
Yeah.
losing. So my marriage was already like fell apart. My kids are grown, but still, like I was losing my house. I lost my car. I lost my job. Like everything, I was being stripped once again. And I remember sitting there and I was just like, man, like, I don't think I have enough strength to, get back up from this one.
Yeah.
Because I've done it so many times,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was like, I don't have the power. I don't have the strength to do it again. Like, this is too much for me.
Like you said, you're just gonna settle because it happened so
Yeah.
many times. I'm just gonna,
Yeah. And,
you know what I mean?
I was like, my kids are old, like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there in my house that God had blessed me with, and it was just all just crumbling. Like everything was just crumbling apart again. And I just remember crying out to God. Like I just told him, I said, Lord, like I don't have the power. I don't have the energy. I don't have the strength to do it again. I can't do this on my own. I can't do this by myself. And it was like something, like he gave me that heart, I guess, to want something more than
Then what your current life
yeah.
is, you know what I mean?
And I guess he kind of like showed me, what it could be like, him helping me, because I literally could not see a way. I could not see a way, like, and at the same time, okay, that I'm losing everything. I lost my job, lost my house. He's calling me, and I'm cleaning. So I think I'm only like cleaning sober for 3 or 4 months, and he's calling me into service.
Yeah, like how do I serve?
Yeah, I
And I'm
was
going
like,
through all of
I was
this.
like, wait a minute, you want me to
Yeah.
go and serve?
Yeah, yeah.
And like I'm losing everything, like literally losing everything. And this is when he had called me to go and like work with the kids. And I remember hearing his voice because I used to have this office in my 3-story building where I had this office, and I would sit there and I'd do my devotions every single morning. Sorry, it's getting like hot in here. And I'm doing my devotions in my office, right? And as I'm sitting there, I can just hear. I could feel the presence of the Lord.
Yeah.
I can hear the presence of the Lord. No, I can hear his voice. I mean, I could hear his voice so loudly
Yeah.
in that office where, I basically was just dying. I was literally dying. And that was the same place where I would get high inside my room all by myself. And this was the place where God just was like, I need you to die to yourself.
Yeah.
So that I can, redeem you. And I need you to, like, I need to strip everything from you so that I can feel you.
Yeah.
And I remember when all of that was being stripped away, he was telling me, Tricia, enough is enough already. Like literally, I heard his voice tell me, enough is enough already. You have what it takes. You already know the word. You know me. You know what you got to do. Get off your butt and do it now.
Yeah.
Like like stop making excuses.
Yeah.
Like he basically told me like enough. That is
Enough already. You know
And
what I mean?
and he told me that if I don't, then I literally die. I will die in my addiction. And that's when I told him, I said, Lord, okay, if you can take this desire from me to, want to use, because I could not stop using.
Oh yeah.
And I just cried out. I said, Lord, if you take this desire from me to stop using, to stop, everything, that I want to serve you, I will serve you with all my heart, but I want to serve you with fire. Like, I don't want to just serve you.
Yeah.
I want to serve
All
you
in.
with fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I want to, and he ended up taking that addiction from me. I mean, like,
What was the thing that you're addicted to the most?
I would say, my drug of choice was marijuana laced with crack.
Wow.
And like it went hand in hand. It all went hand in hand. At the alcohol, everything. Like I couldn't drink without smoking. I couldn't smoke without drinking. And and I loved it. I literally loved it,
Mm.
and I loved the feeling about it. I just loved everything about it, and I thought it was that, but when I started to get clean, it was really the alcohol.
Oh, really?
It was really the alcohol that was the hardest because it's everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Alcohol is everywhere. Everybody's doing it. It's pushed down your throat
Mm.
in every single way. That's the way people celebrate. That's the way everybody has
Get
relaxed.
together,
Yeah,
yeah. You know
and
what I mean?
that was the thing. And so it was alcohol the hardest thing for me to break. But the Lord took away that whole addiction, that whole desire.
Yeah. You know, it's good that you're touching upon this is because for me, the village is a community, right? And like I said, my village is different from yours. We're serving, you know, I mean, our alignment is the same, but we're serving our own communities. But
Yeah.
one thing that I want to say is this, right? For people watching is that they may be like, oh, I mean, you already relapsed or you already fell back like 4 times, right? You're only clean for 2 years. But for me, real ones rise, right? And I feel like God really does utilize the people that went through the biggest struggles because as they go out and serve communities, as they go out and they help, they know they can relate, right? If there is somebody from outside the community that has no relation to what drug abuse feels like, what addiction feels like, it's hard for them to connect to a community like that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
What are some struggles maybe you feel like where as you're serving, like, right, like the enemy is playing that in your head, like, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like where it's like trying to bring you back to your old ways. How do you fight that where it's like, no, I got to stay the course. I got to stay doing what God wants me to do. Like what keeps you on track now?
So what keeps me on track is just staying in the Word.
Yeah.
Like I gotta be in my Word. I gotta be at the foot of the cross constantly, daily, because even like because of like all the stuff that we're doing, right? Like especially like on social media, like my social media has blown up.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
went from like 300 followers to like almost 7,000 now.
Yeah, right on.
And in that whole thing, people can get big headed. People's pride can get built up. People's you can just start to take credit for things that you have that has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And it rises up, and if I'm not at the foot of the cross, or if I'm not surrounded by my
Your group, your
my
community, your
fellowship,
village. Yeah.
my village,
Yeah.
then I will totally fall. I will totally get big headed. I will totally slip into a place of self. And
Because it's so easy to be like, I did this.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm the one that's walking on. I'm not-
Especially you can see like
Yeah.
you look at just the comments,
Yeah.
and they're all over there like, oh, you're amazing,
Yeah.
oh, you're this, you're that, and I
Feeds
get
the ego, yeah,
I get
feeds
so
the ego, yeah,
irritated when
yeah.
I see that, like
Yeah.
because I mean I know they don't mean any harm or anything, but like it's totally not me,
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate it that you're saying that, but it is totally not me. This is all God's doing. I can't take credit for
Yeah.
none of this.
And it's hard for people that don't have a relationship with God because they
Exactly.
don't understand like God, like you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because it's the connection, it's the
Exactly.
energy, right? After a long day, it's that Holy Spirit like fueling you. Like
Yeah.
I don't even know how I did it today.
No,
you know
because
what I mean? I'm
like
still
even
doing
like this whole week, everybody was like, "How are you still going, Tricia?"
Yeah.
Like that one day when I found the baby, I think it was like
I know
Monday.
that's crazy. Yeah.
That whole day, like I was busy from 6 in the morning, and I was still going till like 11 o'clock at night. And they were like, "How are you doing this?" You know what? It's the Holy Spirit feel.
Yeah.
That's really what it is, because I can't be doing this on my own strength. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
It is not humanly possible.
So now you're clean, right? What was like I guess the forming of My Sister's Keeper?
The forming of like, what do you mean?
Like the group, and then like where you guys are this group, or like the people that are in this group, and now you guys are going out in the community and doing what you guys are doing.
So if you look on my Instagram, right, it says that My Sister's Keeper, we partner with other organizations, businesses, and all that to do what we do. So My Sister's Keeper, at first it started off as a group of women, that I was in prison with, but it has grown and blossomed into something where it's people that are coming along, and I'm their sister's keeper, or I'm a sister to somebody else, or they're a sister to me.
It's like an accountability group where you guys hold each other accountable and all that,
so
support each other.
It's not just about the ones that I'm serving with anymore. It has grown into a thing where like now other organizations are coming up alongside of me, and now they're being a sister to me, or they're being like a partner or an accountability to me. So it has just grown into something that is way bigger than myself, And it's not just about women that are in prison. It has grown into like prison ministry, feed the streets, helping the youth, and just being a sister to somebody that needs help. It doesn't necessarily have to be a woman.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And so God just does what He does, and we just follow.
Yeah, one thing that I really found alignment with you is that you do a lot of this stuff out of your own funding, your own pocket, right? Because you weren't a nonprofit early on, or are you?
I'm not a nonprofit at all.
Yeah. So a lot of for businesses, right? They like to do it, or I guess work with nonprofits because of tax write-off, whatever those purposes. So after a bunch of rejection and stuff like that, like, what made you keep like, no, I got to do this. I got to find a way. Yeah. And then after traction, you get support, right? Like, what made you keep going on, and how were you able to keep going? Because it's not cheap, feeding people, and you're helping these kids get IDs and all that stuff. Like, how were you able to keep it going?
So I have to totally stress this out, that it is all God.
Yeah.
Really, like, I know some people may be like, no, but for real, what is it? No, but seriously, it is.
Yeah.
Because I literally sat there and I know that the Lord has designed it this way, because so I can't take the credit, and so that nobody else gets the credit. The Lord is a jealous God. Yeah. He does not want us to have an allegiance or anything or give glory to anybody but Him. And I really see that He did it this way because He wanted me to give Him all the glory. And when He took everything away from me, I mean, even literally down to the car, and I was like, you're calling me to do this. How am I going to do this? I ain't got no ride, you know? And like, even like, how you want me to go serve the homeless when I'm about to be homeless, Yeah. And it just didn't make no sense to me. And He got me into this place where I was totally reliant, totally dependent upon Him. And all I could hear, Him saying to me in my quiet time, in that place where I was like, how am I supposed to do all this, God? All I could hear was say, are you going to trust me?
Yeah.
Are you going to trust me to provide for you? Are you going to go even if you don't see no provision? Are you going to go if you don't see nobody following you, or if nobody comes with you? Are you going to go even if it's just me and you?
Yeah.
And I was just like, yes, Lord, I'll go.
And that's being obedient, to what He's asking.
Totally.
Talking about resources and stuff like that, you have a pretty cool story about like the Target thing, because you do one thing that's on top of your Instagram is you drive Uber, right? And it's the connections, right? You do these, you put your phone up, you're recording. So, like when you talk about it was God, the connection, talk about like this, I guess, this support that you got from people in Target and how that came about.
So I really got to give a shout out to Uber,
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about Uber. Did not have a clue about Uber. My sister sent me an Uber ride.
And you got into Uber just because you had to hustle.
No, I got into Uber because, so I was a pastry chef before all this.
Okay.
That was my background. I worked at Aulani. I worked in, as a pastry chef in Aulani, at Hilton.
Oh,
that
dang,
was my
background. Some pretty big.
Yeah, like I got my degree. I got into the whole culinary thing was because I used to cook crack. I used to cook dope. And I couldn't do that no more. So when I went to prison, I was like, okay, when I get out of prison, I can't go back to selling dope.
Wait, so because you were cooking crack and cocaine?
Yeah, cocaine. So
was it like almost like I got into something that kind of fulfilled almost like what I was doing?
Yeah. So so that's what I used to. The reason why I went to prison was because I was selling drugs.
Yeah.
I was selling crack cocaine, and I learned how to cook it.
And you got to know how to do it, because I have no clue about it, but I heard like you can blow up a house, blow up the building or whatever.
Well,
right?
that's I think that's more like ice.
Oh.
Yeah. So so I was cooking at the time when I was dealing drugs. The thing on the streets was cocaine. That was like the biggest thing, and that was like the biggest money maker at the time. And I mean, Hawaii was being flooded with so much dope, and so I got into dealing drugs, right? And so I went to jail, and I was in jail for promoting a dangerous drug in the 2nd degree and possession. And while I went to jail, that's where the Lord really like grabbed my heart, and I learned how to have a relationship with Christ instead of just I knew
it's not religion.
Jesus.
It's not religious.
Yeah.
Relationship.
Yeah, and there was this program in the prison that was called Total Life Recovery, where this is now where God had me, like He raised me up in this program, and showed me and developed a relationship, an intimate relationship with Him. And so now, I'm like, okay, I need to change my life. I can't go there. My kids are young. I got to get out. I got to, raise my kids. And so I was like, but what am I going to do? What am I going to do when I get out of here? Like, I'm going to have this background and whatever. And so I remember so everybody in prison has to work in the kitchen before you go on any other work line.
Okay.
And so I went in the kitchen and I saw them baking, right? And I was like,
it's like
hey,
living familiar.
I was like, that looks something like, you know.
I kind of dabbled with it a little bit.
I was like, that looks like almost like cooking crack. And I was like, I think I can do that. And so
a little powder,
yeah, a little baking soda, you know, swish it around, and boom, there you go. And so they offered a 14 credit course from Kapiolani Community College in there, and I was like, you know, let me take that. So I ended up taking that class. Long story short, I ended up taking that class, got out. I ended up getting a scholarship.
Yeah.
Went to Kapiolani Community College, got my degree in pastry arts, and boom, now that's my profession, right? And I took it all the way. Like, I graduated and I worked in like some of the amazing restaurants, hotels.
I mean, that's some big brands. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
Like I worked in Morimoto, Nobu's, Hawaii Prince. Like, I was in like all these places. Like, God, that's where God's favor was upon me. And I remember like serving with these like massive chefs.
Yeah.
Chef Chai, Peter Merriman.
How did that feel for you? Because you're somebody that went through struggle with addiction. You were in and out of prison, and to be with like these world renowned chefs and how was
and
that?
Eating
like
fine dining, like we weren't just eating like scraps. Like, I was eating like some really good food, you know. And I could totally.
Well, there no leftovers.
It was not prison food no more. Like, I could totally see God's favor on me.
Did that kind of help, like maybe put the light bulb in your head? Like, man, you know what, Trish, if you can stay the course, life can be, you know what I mean, better than what you ever could imagine.
Yeah.
You know?
And God, when I was in prison, like, God showed me all these things, you know, like owning my own business, owning my own, like youth center type thing, you know, like He showed me glimpses of this. And I would write it down and I would journal. Like, the whole time I was in prison, I would journal.
Yeah.
It's a big thing for me. And God really showed me like these glimpses. And as I was going through life, like, I started to see like these things come to life, you know, the visions come to life. And so, but I just kept falling back. I kept on going back to the same old things, doing the same old stuff. And so, now that I'm staying the course, I'm starting to see God's vision come more and more come to life, you know.
Like they say, right? You search or you yearn for God more. The vision or like the breadcrumbs get a little bit more, where He doesn't give you the total picture, but He gives you the glimpses a little bit more often for you to just keep on going, you know. So that's pretty. That's great. So the Uber thing comes into play, right? And you do these. You set up your camera.
Okay. So the Uber thing, right? So after pandemic, during the pandemic, I started working with the kids, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with these kids. I never thought that I was going to work with kids. I thought it was always going to be women. I didn't think I was going to work with kids, but I ended up getting this job where I was working with kids, and I fell in love with it. We bonded. Yeah. And after the pandemic, during the pandemic, you know, like, the first thing to let go was the hospitality and restaurant, right? So I lost my job at the Aulani, and I was like, what am I going to do? I got into working with the kids, and I loved it so much. Pandemic lifted, and I was like, what am I going to do? If I go back working in the kitchen, pastry job, there's no way I'm going to be here for these kids because, like, I'm going to be in the kitchen. I was in the kitchen 10 to 12 hours a day.
Was the kitchen something fulfilling for you at that time?
It was, but it wasn't. It's not as fulfilling as what I'm doing now.
Kid, yeah.
Like, it was a job, it was a career, and I told myself in prison, like, I'm gonna graduate, I'm gonna work at the top restaurant, at the top hotels, and I thought that was gonna be my life. I made it to the top, but when I did all that, it was like
it wasn't what you thought it was gonna be. Yeah,
this is not what I plan on doing for the rest of my life. And so so I was looking for a job now, right after the pandemic happened. And I was looking for something that was going to be able to accommodate these kids. And there's nothing, because the 9 to 5, you can't, you know. And so my sister sends me an Uber. Never knew nothing about Uber, okay? She sends me an Uber, and I'm over here, and I'm like, what is this whole Uber thing? Yeah. And she tells me, just stand on the side of the road. Just go stand on the side of the road. And
you're waiting for the Uber.
I didn't know how the whole Uber works. You know, my sister's just sending me this. I get in the car and this guy picks me up, right? And he's telling me, I said, oh, so how does this work? And he was like, oh, you just get in. I said, but how, like, do you make good money?
Yeah.
I'm asking him all these questions. Do you make good money? And he's like, yeah, you know, I paid off my house. I paid off 3 cars. So he's basically telling me, like, you can survive off of this. And then I asked him, I said, yeah, but, you know, like, what are the hours? And so he said, you work your own hours. You make up your own schedule.
Yeah.
And so now he's got my attention, right? And remember I lost my car, I lost my house, everything. I lost everything. And so he tells me, and then I tell him, yeah, because I used to do DoorDash. I tell him, yeah, but the maintenance on the car and da-da-da-da. He said, no, Uber has a rental car program where you can rent a vehicle.
Oh, wait, what? I didn't know that.
I go, that's where he really got my attention because I didn't have a car. I go, what? And he says, yeah, you can rent a car if you don't have a vehicle. So I'm in the back seat. This is only a 15-minute ride. I'm in the back seat now. I'm like,
now your mind's going.
This is too good to be true. By the time I jumped out of that Uber, I became an Uber driver. I jumped in as an Uber rider, came out an Uber driver. And from that day, I've just been driving Uber. And that's how God provided me a vehicle to be able to do what I'm doing now.
Wow.
And that's it. And the whole Uber thing, God has, I mean, he just has a way of just, you know,
glorify him, girl.
Glorify him. He just has a way of doing things because I would have never thought driving Uber. Okay, for one, that's how he used to provide my car. 2, that's how he used to provide my means of financial to support myself. 3,
and support others.
Yeah, and support others. 3, if I wasn't driving Uber, there's no way that I could keep tabs on the homeless. They're getting swept around so much, but because I'm in the streets all hours of the day, Ubering, all hours of the night, all over the island, that's how I can keep up with.
That makes sense.
That's
because
how
you're traveling so many different places.
That's how I keep up with the homeless people and with these kids. I couldn't find some of these kids. I could not find for like. There was this one particular kid I could not find for like forever. I looked everywhere, prison, the housing, the streets, everywhere. Nobody could find him. One night I'm Ubering. I'm talking to my rider in the back. Told her the whole story how I became an Uber driver. We stop at this stoplight over there by at the stop sign by Zippy's, right? Stop at the stop sign, and I told her about this kid I can't find, right? We stop at the stop sign. This person's walking across the street and stops right in the front of my car and looks right at me. And I look at him and I'm like, and he pulls in like that, right? And he yells out my name, Miss Tricia, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's what a lot of these kids call you.
Yeah,
that's why I am Miss Tricia.
And I go, oh my gosh. And the lady said, don't tell me that's your kid. And I said, that's the boy. And he comes running up to the car and he's like hugging me. He's crying. We're crying. My rider is crying. And I told him, I've been looking for you all over. I couldn't find you. He was like, I need help. I need help. I've been trying to get a hold of you, Miss Tricia. Can you help me? I said, let me go drop off my ride. I'll come right back. I came back. The boy was just, I mean, he was in a bad shape.
How does it feel when these kids or anybody these homeless find comfort in you?
Oh
like what fulfillment do you get, or what does that do for your heart?
Well, so you know, when I was younger, or just as a human being, you know, to have somebody there that you can call, or somebody that you can like just rely on. I mean, that's everything. You know, support a friend, whatever. You know, and that's basically what these kids need, is somebody who is going to be consistent, someone who is really genuinely going to care for them. And they, you know, they saw that in me, that consistency and that genuine love for them. And to have that, to know that they trust me enough, because these kids, like, I mean, they call me all hours of the night. They call me, you know, for help and I don't even, so these are the kids that I used to work with at this program that I was at. They still calling me even after I left. I don't even work there no more. And to know that they have that trust in me, and that you know, that they can rely on me, is everything to anybody. You know, even if it was an adult. You know, to know that you can call somebody, pick up the phone, and you know that they're gonna be there for you. That you know you can rely on them. That's everything. You know, everybody needs somebody like that in their life.
You know, because you were in and out, you know, I know I'm going back a little bit, but because you were in and out of prison, and during this time, like your marriage was just really, really tough, right? And your relationship with your kid, I'm sure it put, you know, stress on that, right? Between you and your kids.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel like, because this is a total different time of your life now, I'm sure you're matured, you're at a way better place. Do you feel like you almost kind of make up like what you couldn't give to your kids at that time, and then you find it where you're able to give these kids now?
Yeah. So remember I told you I did a podcast with Olelo.
Mm-hmm.
She asked me that same question, and so my kids are older now, and it was just me, you know, and I wouldn't really know what I would do if I didn't have these kids or
Yeah.
do what I'm doing now because
Mm-hmm.
like my kids have their own life,
Yeah.
they're doing their own thing, and like they call it the empty nester,
Yeah.
and it's kind of it gets lonely and stuff like that. So to be able to have these kids, and be around them and do stuff with them, it feels like that void. But I'm not saying like I don't hang around my own kids,
Yeah.
but it just feels great to be able to have these kids and know that they still want to like they want to do stuff, they want to hang around and kick it and stuff like that. And it's such a good feeling, and I wasn't the best mom, but they're starting to see that that mom's not that same mom.
Yeah.
She's doing things with her life, and they had to like really, especially my oldest one, he was really hesitant to believe that
You
I
finally
really did change.
changed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I kept on falling back. He was like, oh, here she goes again, doing the whole Jesus thing, doing the whole God thing. She's gonna end up falling back. And sometimes it still even comes up with my family, and it's kind of frustrating. But I guess we put it on ourselves because we
Yeah.
fell, we get up, we fall, and your word doesn't become bond anymore. And so you got to just keep pushing forward, and then they'll slowly see that, okay, maybe she's serious this time.
I think you touched upon that, right? Because it's so much better when people say like, "Hey, you should at least try," right? But when you fall and you try again, you fall, you try again, people almost discredit you.
Oh yeah.
like, oh, I mean, you tried before. It's like, so, like, we almost send the message to somebody like, don't even try anymore. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's like,
yeah.
but it's like you said, and sometimes it's from our own family, right?
Oh
Because
gosh,
they see the
don't
pattern.
let's not go there. That's a whole nother episode. Oh my gosh.
But that's why, for me, it's important that people need to know, like, sometimes the village isn't your family.
Yes.
It's the people that are going to see you for you.
Yeah.
And take you for where you're at in life, where
Yeah.
you at this very moment, because that's what God does for us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, God gives us a clean slate. Yes, of course, we have to face the things that, maybe repercussions of certain things we've done in our past or whatever. But I truly do feel like God takes you at where you're at, and he's going to use you
Yeah.
at where you're at to do his work. And I think, sometimes that's why I do believe that the village isn't just always your family. It's the people that support you, love you, embrace you for where
Yeah.
you're at right now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's good. I'm glad you touched upon that. I want to kind of get into real quick about the ID situation, because a lot of these kids, right? You help them. Well, I don't know how you came about your first one, where you helped them get an ID because, they want to get a job and they don't even have an ID. So how did all of that come about?
So, like I said, I was working at this program. I was helping, kids. And during that time, there was so much expectations on these kids, right? And I was like, so I had to look, okay, what is going on? Like, why aren't they able to do, get a job or stay in a job, or why are they, acting up or whatever? And I noticed, so I saw in this program that I was at, that they were expecting them to do all this stuff, but they weren't. They had all these missing parts over here.
And for a kid, they don't know how to piece
Yeah,
something together.
and that's the whole reason why they came to this program, was because they wanted to come here, get some help, and get some stuff. And I don't want to knock anybody or not, but I'm just gonna speak facts.
Yeah,
Speak
hey,
truth,
do
okay?
what you got to do.
So a lot of these programs, or like nonprofits or whatever, like they say that they're doing one thing, or they say like they have this title of doing all this stuff, but then like when you get into the place, a lot of the things weren't going on. A lot of the stuff wasn't really happening. Like they did a lot of stuff for like for the front, like they fronted like on a lot of things.
Like, this is what we do.
Yeah,
this
this
is
is
what
what
we
we do.
provide.
This is how many kids that
Yeah.
are graduating. This is how many. But what about the ones over here? And those were the ones that I started to gravitate towards, like the ones that were just kind of like getting kicked to the curb. The ones that were like shining, or the ones that like had these obvious giftings and stuff.
Yeah.
That was the ones that that people liked more, because it made their program look good. It makes their program look good.
It's almost
It
like
makes
hanging
them
a
look
trophy or something. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, look at what we do. You know what I mean? Like what we got.
And I was like, well, okay, so what about you're still like leaving these kids out? These kids still have potential too. So I took one of these boys, right? He was getting kicked out of the program actually that day that I saw him, and I went after him.
Yeah.
I was still clocked in at work too, and I said, no, I'm gonna go over there. And basically, they were like, "Just let her go. Just let her go. She ain't gonna stop. There's nothing you can do to stop her." So I went.
Let her do her thing.
Yeah, and I went, and I found out that the boy was raised, he's from the hood, and that his mom is like, drug addict, doesn't have a dad, single parent, and I started to really learn and understand, like what is going on with these kids.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't have a driver's license, didn't have a birth certificate. He didn't even have a birth certificate.
Yeah.
Okay, didn't have a state ID. So you're expecting this kid to go get a job. You're expecting this kid to do something that he don't even have the basic needs to do. And
a lot of these kids, because they're kids, they don't know how to do and they're not gonna do the research. Like, I'm just gonna keep it the same.
And no, okay, so this one boy, okay, he wasn't even born here. So okay, to get a birth certificate, we all know that's already hard in itself. Yeah. This is a 16-year-old boy, okay, that you're trying to he's trying to figure it out on his own. Like, I would have done quit. It's better just to go deal drugs because that's easier. Yeah. And I can get the money right now. Yeah. That's the reason why a lot of these kids are dealing drugs. That's why I dealt drugs, because I knew I could get fast money right then and there. I didn't have to go through all these hoops and jump through all this stuff.
So much effort. I go exactly what I know.
Especially when your family is hungry, when you know your brothers and sisters are back home, your mom needs, your sister needs diapers, or you need food. Yeah. That's what majority of these kids' stories are. Yeah. Is that, their families are living in poverty. And so I just basically just kind of sat down, saw that, okay, here's the problem. What's the solution? And the solution was, we need to get the birth certificate. He needs to get a birth certificate so he can get a state ID. He needs to get a state ID so he can get a job. He needs to get a job so he can, get some money. And this one boy, like, he reached out to me, and, he's such a hustler too. And he's a go-getter. Yeah. And it took this one kid, I took it from the very beginning. We walked it all the way through, from the birth certificate to the ID to the driver's license. Like, he was the one that set it off. Yeah. And we even went to go buy a car. We walked off the lot. He bought a car. All I did was assist. Yeah, that's all I did.
Just guide him,
was assist. Yeah. And you know what was so crazy? Like, this really opened my eyes. Was when we bought the car, we were driving back to the hood. Yeah. And on the way, as we were driving back to the hood, the crew stops us. You know who the crew is, right?
The cops, right?
Yeah. So it's undercover though. Oh, okay. They stop us. The guy walks up to the car and he tells the boy, get out of the car. You're this is a stolen vehicle. Like, right off the bat, just speak to him like he's nothing, right? And I'm sitting there in the passenger seat, and I'm just like, and I already know how they are, I know that life because I've been there. Yeah. And I'm sitting there, right? I don't say not one word, and this guy, the cop's just talking to him down. First of all, the cop ain't supposed to do that because he's not in a uniform. Okay, he's not allowed to ask. He's not allowed to do none of that. So he's already like totally violating this kid's rights. And so the boy's like, oh, no, like, this is my car. And he calls him a liar, tells him, you're a liar. No, this ain't your car. Where'd you get this stolen vehicle? And the boy's like, no, this isn't a stolen vehicle. And he was like, well, I know you ain't got no paperwork. I know you ain't got no insurance. Like, just ridiculing this kid. And the boy goes, no, I got all of that. And he was like, well, you ain't got no license. You're driving without a driver's license. Get out of the car. I'm going to arrest you for that. He was like, no, I got all of that. And the cop goes, I like C. So he says, Matt, can you grab the stuff out of... And this boy is totally humble. Yeah. Doesn't talk back, doesn't, swear nothing. Just answering, just abiding by this cop's rules, right? So I grabbed the paperwork, right? And I could say something. Yeah, but you kind of let him handle it. Yeah, I got to let him handle it. So I grabbed the paperwork, he hands the thing. And if you could have seen this cop's face, I'm telling you, like, this was the moment of all moments for me. Like, this was the moment that set it off for me. Was when he handed that cop the paperwork, and his jaw just dropped. Yeah. Like, it just dropped. And he just was like, what? This is what he said. What? And then the boy just was looking at him, right? And he was like, this your car? And he was like, yeah, that's what I told you. And he was like, and you get insurance? And he was like, I get everything. I get the insurance. I get, the
I got it
safety check.
all.
I got it all.
Yeah.
The paperwork's right there.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, but you know more driver's license. He was like, no, I get. He said, I like to see him. He gives him the driver's license, and he's still telling him, man, this is fake. This ain't real. And he says, no, it's real. And he was like, how you got all this? And he looks at me, and he turns to me, and he says, Miss Trish, you ain't help me. And man, I'm telling you, I was like, and I looked at that guy's face, and he was like, the guy looked at me, and he said, you helped him get this? I said, he did all of that. I just assisted him. And he was like, he puts everything back. He hands it to me. He goes, right on. Good for you, man. And I'm telling you,
man,
I grabbed
awesome.
that boy, and I said, how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel?
Yeah.
And then he was like, dang, man, that one feels so good.
Yeah.
That one feels so. I said, you know what? And that's how we changed the game.
Yeah.
I told him, I said, that's how we changed the game up in here.
I like that. That's how you change the game. I know for a fact that cops, I'm sure, come across a lot of these kids, and it's almost like a repetitive story, right? So they have the narrative like, this is just how it is, right? What do you think if you could express to a lot of these kids that are having a hard time to change their life, right? Mm-hmm. Get away from the old ways and be legit.
Yeah.
Change the game.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you tell these kids? Like, hey, do it. Change.
So I didn't have to tell them nothing. It took that boy going back into the community, and the boy saw that he rolled up and he said, how you got this car? And he told them. And from that day, all the boys started calling me. Yeah. And it went from one, I think we're like on number 20. We're on 20 of the kids, 20 boys. I got their driver's license. So we got 20 kids, like maybe about 4 got their permit, 2 bought a car. And so literally it just takes one person to go in there and just be like, you know what, I don't want this life. I don't want to do this. And when he went in, when he finally showed them like it's possible, they saw visually it was possible. He could do it, then I could do it. And it just caused this ripple effect. It just caused this ripple effect throughout KPT, throughout the hood. Like, dang, I could do it. And they just kept telling, how did you do that? How did you? Miss Tricia, you want to help me? And they call me up out of nowhere. Miss Tricia, you can help me get my driver's license. I get DMs in my Instagram. Hey, I heard that you help kids get that. Can you help me? Let's go. Let's do it.
Because you help pay for it, right? Like,
wait, and I want to just say this. Okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't even have a car, remember? I don't even have a car, and I'm helping these kids get their driver's license.
Hey, God gonna use you. He's gonna provide it, right?
I'm telling you, God, He just wants to see if I'm gonna trust Him.
Amen.
If I'm gonna trust Him.
That's what it's about. So you help pay for, you're getting by. You're helping pay. How do you, if somebody wants to help what you're doing, how can they help you? Or
so basically, like if it's
because it ain't cheap, you know what I mean? When especially
not.
like a bunch of kids are wanting to
stuff. When it was just the beginning, it was just like 1 or 2 kids you're paying
not too
for
bad,
their, it wasn't too bad. But now it's like coming in abundance, and we're not just helping the kid, we're helping the parent, the auntie, the uncle. We're trying to,
you're helping the cops too, because all these people are legit.
No, for real, they need to give me, because now I got these people.
HPD, can we get a sponsorship or something?
No, for
Department
real.
of Transportation.
Not only am I keeping drunk drivers off the road by driving
Come
Uber,
on.
Okay,
run that resume now.
I'm getting people legitimate drivers.
Run that resume right now.
IDs now. So come on now. I'm helping the community out. I'm making your job easier.
Hey, but you see how like everybody can support each other, right?
Yes.
And when you can help spark, change the game, become legit. Now you make it easier for the law enforcement, for the state, for the community, and that's why it's so important for people to support each other and build each other up. But that
can even ask KPT. Like KPT now will tell you they don't even see those boys. They used to be the ones hanging around doing all kinds of stuff. When I did my interview with the staff over there at KPT, they said they don't even see those same boys out there no more. I said, yeah, because they working now. Yeah. They're working legitimate jobs. They ain't got time to be out here doing this mess. Mm-hmm. And so now the community ain't, in a whole uproar because now they're doing stuff that's positive. But it really is like the way they were treating them, the way I saw when I would go up in there, and the way they were talking to them, the way authority talks down to them, like that was a huge thing. That was a huge thing that I saw. Like, no wonder why they don't like you guys. Like, look at the way you treat them. if they just treat each other with respect, even regardless of knowing the stuff that they do, man, because that's all I did was just talk to these kids with respect, treat them like humans, and
Yeah.
they gave me back that same respect.
No, that's what's up. You know, I want to get into your Target thing because the reason why I want to touch upon that is because a lot of times, because you don't have a nonprofit, you get rejected a lot, right? You don't get the
Yes,
support, or like,
yes.
oh, you don't have a nonprofit, I can't do it, whatever. But you actually had support from Target, and it came through the Uber thing, right? You want to touch upon
Yeah.
that?
So you want me to tell you like the whole story? Like
Yeah,
how I
like
met-
even just like, and that's why, right? When you talk about God, it's hard for people to understand. Like, well, yeah, you always talking about God. Well, God sometimes just orchestrates who gets in your
Yeah,
car,
yeah.
the timing of
Totally
how,
orchestrates
you know,
it.
when they come in the car, and then
Mhm.
when you need it most, you can't describe it any other way. Like,
No.
that's God.
Yeah.
You know, so talk about your Target thing, about like, just, you know, you've been getting rejected, you
Okay.
need these resources, you're feeding all these homeless, you need
Yeah.
supplies. So now it's like, man, God, I mean, really, I can't do anything. Like,
Yeah.
now it's God. Explain that part.
So, God told me to go, and I was just like, okay, how am I supposed to do it? And when God tells you, when you're in God's will, it's His bill.
Yeah.
So He's gonna provide
Ooh.
everything.
Repeat that, please.
If you're in God's will, it's His bill.
Come on
And
now.
wherever He sends you, He will provide the means for
I
it.
like that.
And at the time when He told me to go, I just couldn't see how it was gonna happen, But I was out driving Uber one night, and he's now at this time he's calling me to go out, start doing these cooking and baking classes. But he wanted to see if I was gonna be obedient in going.
Yeah.
And so I did my first baking class with just whatever I had,
Mhm.
whatever I had at home.
Yeah.
A portable oven I brought out there, whatever the means I had. And he just wants to see if you are going to trust enough to go and believe that he called you to go.
Yeah. And he can provide, you know?
Exactly. So I just took what I had at first, and I did like 2 classes. And now I'm going into like my 3rd class, and I'm like, okay, this is getting kind of expensive. I got like 20 to 30 kids at my cooking and baking
Yeah.
class. I was like, okay, I can't be doing this on my own.
Yeah.
So one night I'm out Ubering, right, and I just had gotten denied a huge grant. I had filled out this thing. This lady sent me this thing, and it was like for 50 grand, I think it was.
Wow.
And I was excited because
And that would have been a game changer, man.
yeah,
50
I was
grand.
excited because this lady was like, "No, this is totally you. This is what you're doing. We'll back it up and blah 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 blah." But at the very bottom, the fine print, it says, "But you have to be a 501c3."
Yeah.
And I was in my criminal mind, okay. I was figuring out ways how I can go, make this happen. How I can
Because as a
how
hustler,
I can manipulate.
exactly. how I can make just it work.
Exactly. I figured out a way how I can, manipulate this and do that. And then I finally just got down to this place where I had to go bring it before the Lord,
Yeah.
right? And I
That's
had to
good.
bring it
That's
for,
so good.
I had to bring it before the Lord in my quiet time. And I had to say, and in that time when I laid it before the Lord, God said, "Tricia, what makes you think that I need a 501c3 or a nonprofit to give you that 50
To
grand?"
provide what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, "Huh?" And he said, "What makes you think you need a nonprofit for me to provide for you?" And I said, I don't need nothing, Lord. I just need you." And he was like, "You don't need nothing but me." And I was like, okay. And so I was driving around one night. Okay, so after this time, okay, I had that moment with God, right? I'm driving around. This is like a week past. I'm driving around picking up people, just doing my normal Uber routines, right? Picking up people. I pick up this man. It was like maybe 9 o'clock at night. I pick up this man. He jumps in my car. And the first thing he asked me, in a very still, small voice, he says, "Oh, so do you drive Uber full time, or what else do you do?" And I go into the whole spiel about, what I do with the kids and, the streets and just everything, right? And he says, "Oh," and I said, "But I just want to let you know that, like, I'm not a 501c3.
Yeah.
I'm not a nonprofit.
Just keeping it real, keeping it front.
I do this. I just do this because, there's a need out there, and I just basically am trying to fill the need in any ways that I possibly can." And he was like, "Well, I could, like support you. I want to support you,
Yeah.
and I want to be able to provide, means. He said because the cost of living is so high, and I know
Yeah.
things are expensive. Like I want to help alleviate some. And the way he
The
was
pressure,
saying
yeah.
it was just so like calm and smooth. And here I'm in the front seat, like, yeah, right, okay, here we go again. Here we
I've
go.
heard
with
this story
somebody-
before,
Yeah,
yeah.
here we go again. Somebody want to help me. They're saying all this. So I just took it as a grain of salt. He just
Yeah.
said, here, take my number. Don't give me yours. You take mine so you could call me.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, okay. So he gives me his number, right? This was a Friday night, okay? Friday night. The next day I had a reservation, okay? Just a regular reservation.
Yeah.
I didn't know who she was. She just a random reservation that popped up, and I took it. 7:00, I go pick up this lady in Kapolei, right? She jumps in my car, we load up her luggage, and we're off. We're driving. Conversation starts. I didn't know nothing about her, nothing about me. We start talking about what do you call that? Deep, like places to shop in the area. And I tell her I mentioned Walmart, and she instantly says, "Oh, is that the only place you shop?" And I
what?
said, and I go, well, "What do you mean? Where else is there to shop?" And she said, "Target." And I go,
Target a little bit bougie, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
I'm
I
used to-
said, Target. I said, why? What you go like? What is it with
Yeah.
Target? And she tells me who she is.
Yeah.
And I said, you're not gonna believe this. I said, you're not gonna believe this. I said, I met this guy
Yeah.
saying that he works for Target and like he could help me.
Uh-huh.
And this is how I'm telling her, and he could help me. Like he said he could do all this. And she was like, what's his name? And I tell her his name, right? And she was like, I know him. And I said, what? And I said, how you know him? She tells me that she's the overseer for all of Targets in the Hawaiian Islands.
That's G.O.D. right there.
And I
That's
go,
G.O.D. right there.
no, but this is really where G.O.D. stepped in is when she tells me, you're dropping me off to the airport because I'm moving and he's going to be in my position.
Come on,
So the guy
come
that I had in
on.
my car Friday night is now
Yeah.
going to be the overseer of all Targets, right? And I go, what? And she says, yeah. She was like, no, he's not lying. He's
Yeah.
not making it up.
He the
Call
real
him.
deal.
Yeah. She says, call him. Call him. He's telling you the truth. So now that's Saturday, right? Sunday, I text this guy. He tells me, make a list of everything you need, like a list, just
Yeah.
everything. He went, don't hold back nothing. Just tell me everything you need, right? So I make this list. I send it to him. Monday afternoon, we go out there like 1:00. I bring a friend with me because I was like, no, because when I told him what happened, he couldn't believe it. And he's telling me, man, Tricia, if you don't know that this is what God wants you to do, then I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah.
I bring him with me. We go out there, we sit down. That guy's telling us all kinds of stuff, just telling what he's gonna do for me and give me and all this stuff. Then he calls somebody and they open up the door. Okay, they open up the door. We're in this office that we're in the Target at Salt Lake. All these wagons come in. I'm talking about like there was like five, 6 wagons.
Man, Christmas came early, huh?
Filled with everything from my baking class,
Yeah.
for my feed the streets, the medical supplies. I mean, there was portal and no, and then I tell him, I said, oh, he says, is there anything else you need? I said, I would need an oven because I'm doing cooking and baking class, right? I said, how am I gonna do a cooking and baking class, God, without no oven? And he was like, I got you. So the guy says, you need an oven? I said, yeah, but the place that I'm at is not my place.
Yeah.
So like if I have to leave, the oven's gonna stay there.
Yeah.
He said, you know what? I'm gonna give you portable ovens. He ended up giving me 4 of those portable ovens.
What?
So and it just made sense because if I would have had left it there, if I would have had
you wouldn't be able to continue what you wanted
but
to do.
because now because I have portable ovens, I'm able to go into Marorites, I'm able to go to Kawiki Village, able to go to Camp 4 and do all these baking and cooking classes.
Oh, so you go to the different housings.
So I
you're not
first
just
started off in
KPT.
KPT, but now God has me spread out, and so that's something that only God can do. You know?
Oh, for sure.
And I thought so. God reminded me about remember that $50,000 grant that they wouldn't give you. He ended up giving me
more
Target
abundantly more.
This man, this guy from Target ended up supplying me for 1.5 years all my supplies for everything. Christmas, Easter, back to school, all my baking classes, my Valentine's Day class, all for 1.5 years. That was way more than 50 grand.
Yeah.
And he gave me this big griddle, that big propane griddle.
Yeah.
I still got it brand new in the box in my garage. And so, I just was like, Lord, if you keep on providing like
Yeah,
that,
man.
then I'm gonna keep doing it. And
You know, when
if
they say he exceeds and gives
he
abundantly,
does,
man, 50 grand ain't
he
nothing.
does,
I got you,
he
100 grand,
does, he
150.
does.
Man,
Yeah,
that's so good.
yeah,
Man, that's great, and it really attests to, like, you know, when you say it's all God,
yeah,
that's it. Those are the things that keep happening.
yeah.
You know, let's touch upon this Camp Agape as we kind of start,
Yes.
you know, wrapping up a little bit.
Camp Agape.
Touch upon that a little bit more. I know you touched upon it in the beginning, but you know, I want
So
to just do a
Camp
piece.
Agape is a camp for kids of incarcerated parents.
And it's coming up, right?
It's coming up Memorial Day weekend in May.
Okay.
And so, you know, if you guys got anybody in prison, okay, if your mom or dad was in prison, if you have any relatives in prison, this camp poured into my kids, taught them the love of God. I mean, really discipled my kids while I was there. And you know, the Word of God says that, you know, you train up a kid in the way that they
Lord.
shall
Yeah.
go, and they will not depart from it. So the seed was planted in my kids, and you know, that seed will eventually grow and bear fruit.
Mhm.
And so that's what this camp does. You know, it teaches them the Word of God, teaches them the foundation, which is daily devotions and getting into your Word, and really, really trusting in the Lord. So I support it 100%, because you know, anything that has anything to do with the Lord,
Yeah.
I'm gonna support it.
And it was, you know, like you said, the seed was planted, and it's directly with you.
My
you know?
kids went through it, and then that's where my sister's keeper was birthed.
Nice.
And so, you know, I gotta come alongside Pastor Roy and Shar, and support and shout out Camp Agape.
There you go. There you go. You know, as we're wrapping this up, what does the term the village represent to you or mean to you?
So the village, everybody has to have a village.
Amen.
Because without my village, like, I wouldn't be able to do life out on my own. Like, this whole sobriety thing, this whole service thing, you know, I have a huge village. My family, who I absolutely love, hate sometimes.
Yeah.
But, you know, I
And
love
those are
them.
honest feelings.
Yeah,
Those are honest
I
feelings.
love them to death. But everybody has to have a support network.
Come on.
You got to have a supportive network. And I have men and women that love me. I have a bunch of powerful, God-fearing women that pray for me, stand in the gap for me, and come alongside me whenever, you know, things are rough. Like, they will. These are warrior women. And God has built a fellowship and a village for me to be able to walk this life with. And I honestly know and believe that that's the only reason why I stayed sober and am sober today and doing things at this level, is because of my village.
Hey, awesome. I love that. You know, if whoever's watching, if they're going through a hard season right now, what is some encouragement you can give them?
You know those cliches, how they say, trust in the Lord.
Yeah.
You know what? We ain't going to do one of them cliches, because that's so irritating.
Give it
You
to
know
them
when
real.
You
Give
know
it
when
to
when
'em
someone
real.
says, like, you're going through a hard time, they say, oh, just trust in the Lord. Oh, just pray. No, get out of my face. No. So this is what I would say is that, you know, just
Speak to 'em.
reach out. Reach out. You know, if there's somebody that you can reach out to, you know, like, you can, everybody knows my Sister's Keeper. If you don't, you know, you can reach us on IG at _SistersKeeper01. DM us, you know, and we'll pray for you guys. You know, we'll come out and try to support you, try to uplift you, try to get you, you know, connect you to a church that's gonna, you know, come alongside you and just speak life into you.
It's good.
But everybody needs a village.
Come on.
You know, everybody needs a village that they can call their own, where you can feel safe, you can feel, you know, just empowered.
I love it. You know, call to action. My action is this. How can people come and support you and my Sister's Keeper?
Well, if you want to write a check now,
tell them what
so
you
if
need.
you want to send a check, you can just DM us on the Instagram page. I do have my Venmo out there. People have just been, you know, sending it there, or like, if donations and stuff, we have been collecting a lot. Like, we have gotten an overabundance of donations because one of the videos that went viral with the kids on the street. I mean, people have just been giving with that. But yes, we do take physical donations, but monetary donations are so welcome too, because like, we're taking these kids out, you know, doing outings with them, field trips, and that all costs money.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, if you guys feel on your heart that, you know, this is something that, you know, you trust and believe that is helping the community, then come on, get them checkbooks out. Cash App us.
Put your money where your mouth
right?
is.
Put your money where your mouth is. And I can honestly say that you're gonna see that like we are really putting in the work.
Yeah,
Like, we are
no,
really out here
it
hitting
ain't
the,
no lie. You
like
go to
we
your
are really
Instagram
putting in
and
the work.
watch you work.
Yeah.
Night, day, whatever time it is, every
And
single
not
day.
just like we're not just like like a kind of like we are really in there with
Yeah.
them. Like we have relationships with these people. So I know a lot of people don't want to donate because they don't know for sure if that's where it's going to go.
Yeah.
No, we make sure that
Yeah.
it goes to where it goes, and that's what it's used for. And I honestly believe that the reason why we are being blessed so abundantly is because you steward what God gives you
Come on.
well, and and with integrity, that He'll just outpour
Come
more.
on, that's
and
a word right
everything
there.
that I try to everything that God has given me, I try to steward it to the best of my ability.
Because if you don't steer it correctly, it's gonna stop.
Exactly.
And that's why you are blessed with abundance right now, because you are stewarding it correctly.
I try to do the best that I
Yes.
can. Yes.
Yes. Hey Trish, thank you for your time.
Thank
I
you.
know you got to go feed
Yes,
people
yes.
right after this, but hey, Village fams, I hope man, there was so many gems dropped in this episode with Trish and my sister's keeper. If you guys can support her cause and what they're doing, go and support them. Monetary donation is greatly appreciated, but if you can't do that, physical donations. But man, she touched upon so many things. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode like I did.
Can I give one more shout out?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I want to shout out my team.
Yeah, do
my
it.
team.
Give them their love.
My feed the streets, because I really can't do it. Like the village,
Yeah.
right? My team that I hit the streets with. Just everybody that supports me. Labor of Love, River of Life. Everybody knows who you are. Like, I absolutely love and adore them, and I appreciate you guys so much. If I've never said that, I appreciate my team so much.
Nice. Gotta
And
give the
thank you,
flowers.
Jesus.
Amen. Amen. Hey Trish, I want to give you this as a welcoming to the village,
Yay!
and it's in your colors.
Yes, it is.
But thank you for doing what you do. You're serving
Thank
the
you.
communities, and it's just a welcoming. Welcome to the village.
Thank you.
But yeah, but Village fams, hope you guys loved today's episode. We are a place where the real ones rise and purpose meets community.
Come on.
Let's go. Have a great day, everybody. Aloha.